Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello everyone. I hope you all are keeping well. This is Dr. Angan Chandgupta. I am an assistant professor with Amrita Vishwavidyapeetham in the Department of Management at Bangalore campus. I welcome you all in this course of Basic Microeconomics on behalf of Channel 15 Swayam Prabha. So till now we have discussed about the consumer behavior. We have discussed about the utility. We have discussed about the reveal preference approach, indifference curve, how consumer derives their demand. So we have also discussed about demand and supply theories, right? Theories of demand and theories of supply, and how a market can achieve an equilibrium through the discussions between a supply and demand, or the consumers and the suppliers, right? Um, and then they determine a price. So today we will be discussing about elasticities. So we will start with the elasticity of demand, and then we will go to the elasticity of supply. So today we will discuss about elasticity of demand and supply. And what is elasticity? Elasticity is when you put a pressure, or there is a pull and push on a certain object, how far it can move, right? How far its shapes change, right? So we can always think of a rubber band, and it is very elastic. And then there are certain very rigid material, very strong material, which we cannot bend and all, put it the same amount of force. So that is basically elasticity. So when there is a force, and how far the other object where the force is being applied to, how is that changing? So when we discuss about price elasticity, so that is nothing but price elasticity of demand. So when we discuss about price elasticity of demand, that is nothing but the responsiveness of the quantity demanded. So that means how much the demand, the quantity that is being demanded, how much the quantity that is being demanded is of that particular commodity is changing with respect to price. In simple words, if price changes by 1 unit, how much the quantity demanded changes, or often the price does not change by 1 unit or something like that. So we always state that the percentage change in price and how much it have put an or it has an impact on the percentage change in quantity demanded. That means that when there is a change in price, how much the quantity demanded changes. So you know from the previous class that law of demand, that when price rises, quantity demanded falls. When price falls, quantity demanded rises, and the magnitude of this rise and fall is determined, is estimated in terms of percentage, and then that the ratio between the change in price and the change in quantity. So in the numerator change in quantity, in the denominator change in price, because the quantity is changing with respect to price, that value, the change in quantity divided by the change in price, will give you the percentage change in quantity demanded divided by the percentage change in price, will give you the price elasticity of demand. Often is mentioned as E, and small p is nothing but the price elasticity. You can also show it like epsilon, a curved E, or a small e as well. All right, so there are different notations, but it does not really make any difference. What does price elasticity tell? Say a price elasticity, we have a number minus 0.1. You can see a point over here, minus 0.1 or 0.1. What does that mean? This means that when price of oil increases by 10%, quantity demanded falls by 1%. That is why minus 0.1, right? So the quantity demanded has decreased by 1%, where the price has increased by 10%. That means 1% divided by 10%, 1 divided by 10, 0.1. Now why minus? Because price is increasing, quantity demanded is decreasing. So they are moving in a different direction. One is plus, another one is minus, and hence, or 1 is minus, so price is increasing, the denominator is positive, quantity demanded is decreasing, the numerator is negative. So, and you get a after this division, you get a sign which is nothing but a minus sign. So how would you interpret this elasticity of minus 0.1? We have already said that a 10% rise in price will lead to a 1% decrease in the quantity demanded of oil. Now, certain characteristics of price elasticity. Price elasticity is always relative quantities, because elasticity is measuring the change in quantity demanded to the change in price, right? So it's not an absolute figure. So the change in quantity demanded is happening only with respect to the change in price. So it's a relative quantity. So from one reference point to other reference point. So if the price is increasing from 5 rupees to 10 rupees, how much the quantity demanded will decrease. If the price, when the price was 5 rupees, how much the quantity demanded? When it rises to 10 rupees, how much now is the quantity demanded after a fall? And this change is a relative quantity change. It is always negative. Why? Because it shows an inverse association between price and quantity. And ceteris paribus, if you remember, if you attended my class earlier, then that ceteris paribus means that everything else is kept constant. It is only the price causing a change in quantity demanded. Everything else, the consumer's income, price of any other related commodity, substitute and complementary commodities, the income, the taste and preference of the consumer, the future expectation of price rise or price fall, the weather conditions, everything remains same. And that is where this ceteris paribus is used, that only price is having an impact on quantity demanded. Yes, generally by convention we ignore the minus sign, because for any normal good, any general commodity, we find a negative association between price and quantity. If not, it's a given good, or there is a snob effect or Veblen effect with that particular commodity associated. But otherwise, all the commodity, if it's a normal good, they will follow a conventional law of demand, where price rise causes a fall in demand. So the elasticity formula, it's our formula. It shows that how we estimate is not a conventional percentage estimation. So this is a change in Q, that is the the current quantity demanded minus the former quantity demanded, and so that is the change in Q. We will say Q2 minus Q1, and divided by the sum of the quantities, like Q1 plus Q2. So we take an average of the earlier quantity and the current quantity. The same happens for price as well. Change in price, the earlier price and the current price, divided by the average price, the change in the earlier price plus the current price, divided by 2. So this is how we basically estimate the the price elasticity of demand. And if I give you an example, say price was 5 rupees earlier, price is 10 rupees now. So price has increased from 5 rupees to 10 rupees, and the Q1, that the earlier quantity with respect to price, was 10 rupees, and Q2, when price increased from 5 rupees to 10 rupees, the quantity demanded decreased from 10 to 7. So when price rises from 5 to 10, we have observed that in that particular, for the time period, for that particular consumer, the demand falls from 10 to 7. Right now, following that the elasticity formula, the first one is change in quantity demanded, and hence you see 7 minus 10. 7 is the current demand, 10 is the former demand when price was 5 rupees. So 7 minus 10 divided by 7 plus 10 by 2, Q1 plus Q2 by 2. So this is an average between the former and the current one. Similarly, divided by the price, this is nothing but the price with respect to price. Quantity is changing, that is why price is in the denominator. So the change in price is, the current price is 10, the earlier price is 5, so the change in price is 5 rupees, and divided by the average price, so the earlier price and the current price, and hence we get see, again we have got a negative value, because when price has increased, the quantity demanded has decreased, and over here we find a negative value, and that is why there is a negative value again over here. And this 0.53 says that if there is a 10 rupees rise in price, the quantity demanded will decrease by 5 units, or 10% rise in price will decrease the quantity demanded by 5%, right? Or 5.3%, something like that. Yes. So there, the price elasticity varies within a certain range. Yeah. So we'll start with the basic general one. So elastic demand. What does elastic demand mean? An elastic demand is when a particular commodities price has increased and then the demand has decreased. Now, let us keep it in a general form, that the change in price has caused certain change in quantity demanded. If the change in price is smaller than the change in quantity demanded, or the change in quantity demanded is larger than the change in price, so the amount of the impact is larger, the magnitude of the impact is larger than the magnitude of the force. So the change in price is smaller, but the impact on the quantity demanded is larger, so the change in quantity demanded is larger than the change in price, then that is called as price elasticity, or elastic demand, which is like in those cases we will get an elasticity value which is greater than 1. Then comes the unit elasticity of demand. Unit elasticity of demand is nothing but when the percentage change in quantity is exactly same as the percentage change in price. Then the elasticity of demand is unitary, 1, and hence it is known as unit elasticity of demand. Whatever price change is happening, the proportionate change in quantity demanded is exactly the same, and hence there is a the elasticity value will get exactly 1, and that's known as unit is 1, elasticity of demand. The next one is inelastic demand. We have understood what is elastic demand. Elastic demand is when change in quantity is larger than the change in price. So a rubber band is elastic because the force you give, it moves more, right? If instead of a rubber band we are taking, say, something like, so let us take this example. So I have this hair band, and if I move it, so this is much flexible, so the amount of pressure I am giving, it is moving faster, right? So this is elastic, yes, as compared to this one. If I am trying to move, this is moving, bending, but bending less. I'm giving the same amount of force, but the bend on this is lesser than the force I'm giving. Over here, the bend is more than the force I'm giving. So over here, this is elastic because the impact is more than the force. Over here, for this sketch pen, this is elastic because the impact is less as compared to the force. And hence, for inelastic demand, we observe that the percentage change in quantity, the cause is, the effect is smaller than the cause. So the percentage change in quantity is smaller than the percentage change in price, and you will get a value which is less than 1. Therefore, you can see over here in this example, we have got a value which is less than 1, right? 0.53 is less than 1, and hence in this condition it is inelastic. If you see, price is increasing 2 times, but my demand decreased by 30%, did not become like it did not become half of that. So if my price is increasing 5 to 10, my demand did not decrease from 10 to 5, demand decreased lesser. That means it is inelastic, and the value over here shows clearly that is this is less than 1, so it is an example of inelastic demand. So there are certain extreme elasticities, which is like can be perfect inelastic demand and perfect elastic demand. Perfect inelastic demand is when a demand curve is vertical line. When a demand curve is vertical line like this, parallel to y-axis. Yes, what happens? It has only one quantity demanded for each price. For each price, one quantity demanded, only one quantity. Yes, no matter what the price changes, no matter what are the quantity demanded does not change. A demand that exhibits zero responsiveness, that is a complete inelasticity, perfect inelasticity. Yes, price changes, the consumer's demand does not change. So even if the price changes over here, you can see, even if the price changes over here due to the y-axis, so the demand remains same. The demand neither falls nor rises. So when the price rises, the demand does not fall. When the price falls, the demand does not rise. We do not have any perfect example of price inelasticity, but we can think of salt. We require salt for food, right? Without salt it is impossible to take food. So even if the price rises, we will still purchase salt. Even if the price falls, we now do not put a lot of salt in our food. I cannot eat that, right? And hence, even if the price falls, my demand does not change. So we have a predetermined fixed kind of consumption pattern of salt, and whatever the price, we need to consume that. And even if the price falls, that does not have any impact. The other extreme is perfect elastic demand. So the previous one was perfectly inelastic because the price changes. This can be perfectly inelastic because I can, or something very strong, I am putting a lot of force, but it does not change at all. So that is a perfectly inelastic. So there is no change on quantity demanded even if there is a price change. Same for perfectly elastic. So a demand curve that is a horizontal line opposite, parallel to x-axis, which is a horizontal line. It has only one price for every quantity. That the price changes, and the slight price rise will fall the quantity demanded to zero. Right? Very difficult to find a perfect example for this. A slightest price rise, your quantity demanded will automatically fall to zero. So this is another extreme. And so over here, for price inelasticity, it is zero. The elasticity value will be zero, because even if the price changes, the delta Q, so I will show you over here, even if the price changes over here, so the delta Q, there is no change in the quantity demanded, and hence there is no change in quantity demanded even if the price changes, so it will be zero, right? Whereas for the perfectly inelastic demand, it is infinite. Whereas even if the the with slighter change in price, the quantity demanded changes by a large margin and comes down to zero, and hence this is often indefinite and infinity. So these are the two extremes what we observe for this price elasticity of demand. We also observe that there are certain relationships between the elasticity and total revenues or expenditures. Now, what is total revenue? Total revenue is nothing but the the multiplication of the product price and the units sold, that is the demand. So the quantity of demanded sold multiplied by the price I have got per unit, P into Q, that is my total revenue. Taking an example, if I am selling one egg for 5 rupees and I have sold 10 eggs, what is my revenue? 50 rupees. Now think of a consumer's perspective. Expenditure, then the revenue becomes expenditure. If the price of one egg is 5 rupees and I have bought 10 eggs, then the total expenditure which I have incurred is 50 rupees, right? So now the law of demand says when price falls, quantity demanded rise. When price rises, quantity demanded falls. That means they are balancing each other, right? Price rise, quantity demanded falls. Price falls, quantity demanded rises. But that does not mean that my multiplication of P and Q will give the same result. It does not give me the same result. So my total revenue varies with the slope of the demand curve, or to be very specific, with the elasticity of demand. Now, what determines that whether my total revenue will increase or decrease? That is, that is determined by between price and the quantity, which has a stronger force, which is moving, which is changing more, which has a stronger force. Then that will, that will change the total revenue by a larger amount, let us say. So what we observe for elasticity of demand, again I will repeat, elasticity of demand is when change in quantity demanded is larger than the change in price. Change in price is this much, change in quantity is this much, then that is a elastic demand. Unit elastic is change in price and change in quantity, same. Inelastic is change in price is this much, change in quantity is this much. So the price change is larger than the quantity change. What we observe in terms of expenditure from the consumer's point of view, that total expenditure and price are inversely related for elastic demand. So when for a particular commodity, quantity demanded increases faster than the price change in price, so the total expenditure will increase when price falls, total expenditure will decrease when price rises in case of elastic demand. Total expenditure falls when price rises, total expenditure will rise when price falls. Why? Because when price falls, if price falls by 10%, my tendency to buy that product, because this is an elastic product form, the product has an elastic demand, my tendency to buy that product will be much higher. So even if the price falls by 10%, I will go and buy 30%. That's why there are sales during these festivals, because your tendency, so they will show that there is a drop in price, and with slightest drop in price, you will buy more, and that generates a higher expenditure. So the price falls and your expenditure is more from the consumers. So I see some sales going on, and I buy more and more. At the end of the day, I have spent a lot of amount. So total expenditure is increased. For unit elastic demand, so the total expenditure does not change even if the price changes, because the amount price changes, the same amount quantity demanded changes. If the price rises by 10%, quantity demanded falls by 10%. Price falls by 15%, quantity demanded rises by 15%, and they adjust each other, and hence the total expenditure remains same. Inelastic demand. For inelastic demand, total expenditure and prices are directly proportional. That means even if price rises, my demand for that commodity does not change much. So if price rises by 20%, my demand falls by only 10%. Right? So at the end of the day, if the price is increasing, my total expenditure will also increase, right? So they show a positive association, because even if the price rises, I will go and buy that. So it happens often in emergency time. It happens if the product is a must, highly essential commodity. I need it urgently. So all these products show an inelastic demand. Medicines, even if the price rises, if I need to take a medicine, I have to buy that. So the total expenditure increases for this inelastic demand where there is for those products where there is inelastic demand. The same thing we can observe between elasticity and total revenue. When demand is elastic, there is a negative relationship. Over here also inverse, right? So there is a negative relationship between price and changes in total revenue. That means when there is an elastic demand, price rises causes falls in total revenue. So the same thing we observe for consumers. Price rises causes a fall in total expenditure, right? Total expenditure and price are inversely related. So when the price rises, my total expenditure falls. When price falls, my total expenditure rises. So the total expenditure from a consumer is total revenue for a producer. Total expenditure for a consumer is nothing but the total revenue for a producer. So if the total expenditure is increasing, that means total revenue for them is also increasing. If the total expenditure is decreasing, that means total revenue for them is also decreasing. So they follow the same trajectory. So when demand is elastic, there is a negative relationship between price and changes in total revenue. When demand is unit elastic, price does not change into have any impact on change in total revenue. When demand is inelastic, then there is a positive relationship existing between the price and total revenue. That means price rises, my total revenue rises. Because even if I rise the price, as the product is inelastic, consumer will still buy that. If I rise the price by 20%, the fall in demand will be maximum by 10% or by 7%. That means I could enjoy more with the rise in price. My income increased, right? And therefore, when price rises for typically inelastic commodities, my total revenue should also increase. With numerical examples, we can show you over here that when price is increasing from 5 rupees to 10 rupees, quantity demanded decreases from 10 to 7. So over here you can see that price has increased by 2 times, but quantity demanded did not become half. So, and as a previous example, our elasticity is 0.53, which is less than 1, and we conclude that this is an inelastic product. At the same time, next one is unit elastic, where you observe that yes, when price rises by 2 times, the quantity exactly becomes half. Quantity falls by again 2 times, right? Or quantity is halved. So what we observe that the total revenue, that is price into quantity, 5 into 10, where for when price was 5 rupees, the total revenue is 10 into 5 when the price is 10 rupees. So it's a unit elastic demand. The next one is the elastic demand, where we see the price rises by 2 times, and then the quantity becomes 1/3. Quantity demanded becomes 1/3, and hence you observe an elastic demand curve, or you can expect elastic price elasticity of demand, right? Because, and you can also observe over here that because of this elasticity, when there is a rise in price, the elasticity, right? When there is a rise in price, the total revenue decreases. It does not really give an advantage to the producer. So the producer has to be very careful when they are rising price in case of elastic demand, right? So, but they will be happier if the demand is inelastic. They can enjoy rising the price, right? This is a demand curve. In different segments of demand curve, and elastic, inelastic, and unit elastic conditions can be shown. So the upper part of any demand curve, when the price is low and quantity demanded, when the price is high and then the quantity demanded is low, that part will always show an elastic demand, because you have seen diminishing marginal utility causes this kind of demand, downward sloping demand curve. So what we observe, when we do not have enough commodities in hand, so we would like to buy more and more, so there is a desperation to get that quantity, that commodity, where I have very less. So the price of change will cause a drop of price, say 10%, will encourage me to buy more than 10%, and hence this part is an elastic part. The middle part is actually the inelastic part, because the total revenue does not change even if price changes. And then the bottom part is inelastic part, because now you have too many of that commodity, and even if the price falls, you are not interested to buy more, so the demand does not change much with the drop in price, or vice versa. Even if the price rises, you have too much, so you do not have much intention to buy or drop the purchase anymore, because you already have a good amount of stock, and hence again that marginal utility concept. And the bottom part of the demand curve will always show you, you can always try, you can always also try with our previous egg example. So, and if you observe over here, that the bottom part is nothing but the inelastic part of demand curve. The relationship between price elasticity of demand can be, broadly shown as, if it is inelastic, so the price fall inelastic, so the price fall will cause a fall in total revenue. If it is elastic, the price rise will cause a rise in total revenue. Inelastic does not change the total revenue at all, even if the price falls or rises. Elastic, if the price falls, then the total revenue rises, because then everyone will be excited to buy that. But if the price rises, then everyone suddenly gets discouraged, so the total revenue falls. So you have to be very careful with an elastic demand curve, right? So there are certain determinants which influence the price elasticity of demand. Of course, we have understood that there are other commodities, and let us take an example of substitute goods over here. So that if there are close substitutes, that means there is a competition, and if I rise the price, I increase the price, people will move to the substitute of my commodity, so they will prefer buying that, they will not prefer buying from me because I have increased the price, right? So the demand will be more elastic, as there are more choices in front of them. So if someone charges, if there are 10 medicine shops, one shop charges me higher, I will say, okay, fine, there are many other shops, I will go to that shop. So it's a, when there are close substitutes, then it is more elastic, and like close and more number of substitutes, then it becomes elastic. But if there is no substitute, then I do not have any choice, right? So then in that case, even if the price rises, my quantity demanded does not fall much, and hence it becomes an inelastic one. Share of the budget, the greater the share of the consumer's budget, total budget spent on a good, then that price shows an elastic demand. Such as, if I buy a TV, which is, if I earn 10,000 rupees, I buy a TV which costs 8,000 rupees, and suddenly the price of that TV, or say 6,000 rupees, suddenly price of that TV increases from 6,000 to 8,000. I'll be very careful to buy that. I will not be really interested. That's primarily because it takes, like, say, if the price of the TV is 6,000 rupees, it takes 60% of my income away, right? Because I earned 10,000 rupees. Now it suddenly increased, but still we planned. Now it suddenly increased to 8,000 rupees. We may drop the plan completely, right? So the greater is the price for those components where we spend a lot, and then for those kind of commodities, we observe a price elasticity. The price elasticity of demand also is determined by the length of time which is allowed for adjustment. And we observe that when there are longer time period, then the consumers can adjust, and then they become more elastic. But when there is no time to adjust, it's an emergency condition, the commodity is highly required, it's a medicine, or something immediately required, then even if they say that, okay, fine, the price is high, say, or if I am going somewhere and someone is asking for a higher taxi price, a taxi driver, I will say, okay, bhaiya, I will go because I am in a hurry, so I will take that ride, right? So price elasticity is greater in the long run than in the short run. In the short run, it is mostly price elastic because I don't have choices much. I cannot play around with options and all. So it matters a lot to determine the elasticity of demand, the time. So how to define a short run or long run? Just to touch upon, the short run is a time period which is too short to make any significant changes or to adjust to the price change. Whereas a long run is, I know that there are a price change, so I will strategize that if not this, then this. If not, then I will not. If I have time, then I will not take a taxi. I will probably take a government bus or an auto, right? So so this is how it is important, that how much time do you have, and every time is different for typical or different types of products, like say for if I am going to my hometown during Corona, and my demand will be my time period, short run or long run, will be too short. The short run will be just 1 day or something, and the long run will also not be very long. But at the same time, if I think of buying some furniture, some book rack, or which is not immediately required, then the short run can be longer than the previous example I took. Even the long run can be even more longer. It can be 1 year or 2 years eventually. So it completely depends upon the product, right? So what we observe when we try to plot them, for a short run, when a consumer operates on a short run framework where he or she is not able to adjust to these to the price change, then naturally the demand curve will be steep, because with the price changes, larger change on price, the quantity demanded does not change much, right? With the larger change in price, on this dark blue, with the larger change in price, you see the quantity does not change much. And later, when they have time, they can adjust, they can think of other possibilities, right? So, or they can reduce the consumption of that particular commodity. So what they do, for a longer time, the price decreases by the same amount. So over here in the dark blue, when the price increases from PE to P1, the quantity falls from QE, equilibrium quantity, to Q1 in a short run. What happens in the long run? Then we will move around and we are on this D3 curve, the lightest one, and we observe that my demand is falling from QE to Q3. So I have got some longer time and I am adjusting my demand from QE to Q3. So my demand is falling by a larger margin for a long run, and hence that can be reflected by a flatter demand curve. So for a short run demand curve, it will be steeper, and a long run demand curve will be flatter. So they just pivot like that around the equilibrium. All right, just few examples. For a short run, say the hospital services, if it is self-induced, if I think that I need to go to hospital, I will just go for a checkup. No doctor has told me, it is just I am not feeling well, then that is kind of an unit elastic. But if it is a long run surprise change, I will probably no, it's okay, fine, as long as I don't have much problem or the doctor does not suggest me, I can wait longer. So for a long run, it your elasticity increases. Right, for a short run, I'm feeling some pain on my chest, let me go to the doctor because it is happening for a longer duration, and then I will go with a I will my elasticity will be lesser as compared to that long run. So you can see, and it is elastic. For the hospital services, they become inelastic because now even if the price is increasing, I still need to go. So this becomes inelastic. But for everyone, for purified drinking water and must commodity, so it's the same thing happens. My price, even if the price rises, my demand does not fall by that margin for a longer run. But it again becomes more elastic, but that the magnitude of being elastic does not change by a large margin. So all this for taxi fare, it can become from an emergency. From a emergency may not be a longer run, but still if you can buy some time, from inelastic it becomes elastic, and everything becomes little bit of from elastic, it remains elastic but becomes more elastic, and like that things change when it moves from short run to long run. So what we observe in terms of, say, what is cross price elasticity of demand? A cross price elasticity of demand is cross price. So you can see that it is mentioned as EXY. So EXY is nothing but the X and Y are two commodities where a percentage change in the demand for one good, how much it changes the quantity demand for, sorry, with respect to the percentage change in price of another good. So when the price of one good causes a change in demand for another good, both the goods are related, either substitute or complementary. So when the price of one good increases, how much it changes the price, the quantity demanded of another good. When we observe that it's a substitute goods, then we know that when the price of that commodity is rising for the substitute good, the quantity of demanded for the other good is also increasing, so it is positive. So the price of my one commodity, so price of gel pen is increasing, quantity demanded of our ball pen is also increasing, right? So it is a positive cross price elasticity. But if price of my petrol is increasing, demand for my petrol car is decreasing, then that is a cross price elasticity for complementary good, and it is negative because price of one commodity is increasing, the quantity demanded for the other related commodity is decreasing. If this inverse association is can be observed between two related commodities, then they are complementary goods, right? So the cross price elasticity of demand can be stated, can be estimated like a percentage in change in demand for one good, let us call it good X, ball pen, percentage change in demand for ball pen divided by percentage change in price for gel pen, price of gel pen. The same thing is percentage you can also observe the same thing for a complementary good, percentage change in price for petrol and its impact on the percentage change in demand for petrol car, right? So we have already told it that a substitute good will yield a positive cross price elasticity, and an increase in the price of X would also increase the quantity demanded for Y, and the complement goods will be a negative cross price elasticity, where an increase in the price of X would decrease in the Y demanded for each price. Income elasticity of demand is nothing but, instead of price elasticity of demand, we will keep it the denominator as income. So that means the responsiveness of demand, how much quantity demanded will change given the change in price, how much the quantity demanded will change, sorry, given the change in income, right? So this is income elasticity of demand. So how much the percentage change in demand with respect to percentage change in the consumer's income. So that is income elasticity of demand. Only the denominator changes, right? Percentage change in demand divided by percentage change in income, and is shown as EI. I stands for income. You can, like, given this data, you can also estimate like if my income is 8,000 rupees per month. My during 2012, in each month I used to buy 10 biscuit packets, and in 2013 my income is 10,000 rupees, and I started buying 15 biscuit packets. And you can estimate the percentage change in the biscuit consumption. 15 minus 10 divided by 15 plus 10 by 2, or you can also do divided by just the 10, the base price. When if you are only doing the the typical percentage estimation. At the same time, over here, 10,000 minus 8,000 divided by the average, 8,000 plus 10,000 divided by 2, or you can do 10,000 minus 8,000 divided by the base income, that is 8,000. And you can estimate your income elasticity of demand. Um, what you can also observe that an income elasticity of demand refers to a horizontal shift in the demand curve in response to changes in income. Refers to a horizontal shift in the demand curve in response to um, changes in income. Why? Because we have learned that when the price is changing, then when price is changing, then the quantity demanded change happens along the demand curve. When anything apart from price changes, or that causes a change in demand, that means, let us take the example of income, then it moves parallelly, right? So price elasticity of demand refers to the movement along the demand curve, whereas income elasticity of demand will move the demand curve, rightwards or leftwards, horizontally. Rise in income will shift the demand rightwards parallelly, whereas the fall in income will decrease the demand or shift the demand curve leftwards parallelly. So the income elasticity of demand, again, as we have estimated the price elasticity of demand, change in quantity divided by the average quantity, whole divided by change in income by the average income, right? And we, in for a normal good, we estimate that when the income increases, the demand also rises, and hence it yields a positive income elasticity, right, of demand. When income rises for any normal good, the quantity demanded will also rise, and there will be a positive sign for the income elasticity of demand. Whereas if it's an inferior good, when income rises, the quantity demanded does not rise much, or it may remain same, or it may eventually fall, does not yield a very strong positive association. Yes. So it can be the income elasticity of demand can basically be negative or positive, but for any normal good, we find it to be positive, right? Coming to the price elasticity of supply, price elasticity of supply is the same as price elasticity of demand, that it is the responsiveness of quantity supplied with respect to price, change in price. For the quantity price of demand, we observe that when the price rises, how much demand falls. Over here, when the price rises, how much the supply rises. When the price rises, because supply curve is upward sloping, price and supply has a positive association. Over here, my price elasticity of supply will also yield a positive value. So the percentage change in quantity supplied divided by the percentage change in price. So that will give me the percentage, elasticity of supply, or price elasticity of supply. So there are several types of price elasticity of supply. One is perfectly elastic supply, which is like when the quantity supplied falls to zero, even if the slightest change in price. Like we have observed perfectly elastic demand, when there is slightest rise in price, the demand immediately drops to zero. So similarly over here for supply is the same thing, but the mirror opposite, that here the price needs to fall, and a slightest fall in price will decrease the quantity supplied to zero. And this is nothing but the horizontal at a given price, like this, this is a horizontal at a given price. So a slightest fall in price will drop the quantity supplied to the zero. Whereas the perfectly inelastic supply will be vertical, and whatever the price increases or decreases, it does not really have any impact on the supply of that particular commodity, and hence it is a perfectly inelastic supply. The rest follows the same logic. I will come to that. So this is a perfectly inelastic supply. So whatever the price is, the supply does not change. It's as similar as the perfectly inelastic demand. Whatever the price is, the demand does not change. So they are any perfectly inelastic curve, will be it demand or supply, will be parallel to y-axis, vertical axis. Any perfectly elastic, be it supply and demand, will be parallel to the x-axis, that is horizontal axis. Yes. So a price elasticity of supply, that okay, before that I will just talk about the other price elastic or price inelastic, not if not the perfect ones, or the unit price elasticity follows the same idea what we have observed for demand, that if the quantity supplied is more than the change in price, price change, if the quantity being supplied is more, the change in supply is more than the change in price, elastic. Change in supply less than the change in price, inelastic. Change in supply percentage, everything is in percentage, percentage change in supply is equal to the percentage change in price, unit elasticity. Right. So there are certain factors which again adjust supply. Let us discuss only time factor over here. So again over here, the longer the time period, the supplier will get time to adjust for its resources, for the resource cost, for the processes. They can bring more resources. So they can make all sorts of adjustment. They can decrease the size of their production, they can increase the expand the production. So the longer the time, they will also find the entry or exit, so that in a shorter time there may not be any immediate entry or exit, right? So the immediately the in a shorter time, immediately the production does not rise or the production does not fall. But in a longer run, you can make all these adjustments, right? If I can decide to buy more of resources, if I find it convenient, I find some profit, so my production will expand, my supply will be more. Whereas what happens for the if I find it this is not going to be going well, so I don't shut down my business immediately, or I don't downsize my production process immediately. I take some time and slowly I reduce my capacity of my firm. So what happens over here, we see, so my whenever it is a short run, so immediately if there is a fall in price or rise in price, my production does not change immediately. So we see that for a shorter time, S1 is my supply curve, where it is kind of a perfectly inelastic one. So even if the price rises or price falls, so over here we are observing price rising, because PE is the equilibrium and the price is increasing from PE to P1. So even if the price is rising, I am not as a supplier, I am not, or I am failing to change the quantity demanded. I am failing to supply more and more. Secondly, what we'll also observe that when there is a rise in time, that there is the time frame expands, so they get more time. So what happens with the rise in price? Now they are encouraged to sell more, they are encouraged to produce more or supply more, because the price is increasing. They can earn a better profit now, higher profit, so their costs are being covered. So what they will do, they can hire labor, they can bring more machineries, and they can produce more commodities. So, and eventually we find with the rise in price, the quantity supplied per period increases. So therefore, with the uh, when the from short run to long run, the supply curve becomes more flatter, where elasticity becomes inelastic to elastic, right? So we will stop here with our current discussion. I wish you happy stay till we meet the next time. Stay safe. Take care. So the next discussion we will be holding on theory of production or theory of farms, and then we will move to from production to cost. And you will understand that I will try to link the theory of production with, to some extent, with the consumer behavior, indifference curve, and also I'll bring that back again. So um, take care by then. Thank you very much.